With the year winding down, it's time to take a look back at the top Bolt stories of 2025, including no love loss with the Florida Panthers. Let's dive in on today's Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Tampa Bay Lightning podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, we want to begin with a shout out to our everydayers. Those of you who tune into every single show, every single day, we love you. We appreciate the support you give us week in, week out. I'm Nick Morgan, and I am joined by the Tate McRae to my Jack Hughes, Greg Stephen. Greg, welcome in, buddy.
Good morning. That was a great one. Tate McRae and Jack Hughes. I'd accidentally slip up with a utensil to, experiment there as well. So I get it.
Sure, man. Sure. Oh, what a start to the show. Hey, thank you for joining us on our year-end special, part one of our year-end special. We're going to be looking at the top Bolt stories of 2025, maybe look at them with a fresh retrospective lens and talk about how they impact the Tampa Bay Lightning today. And we have some juicy stories to dive into today. Obviously, another first-round loss that kind of set the tone for the season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. It came at the hands of the Florida Panthers, who also, Greg, the Lightning had a little bit of a preseason tiff with. They've also had some, qualms with the NHL Department of Player Safety with how some of these games have been handled. And it's everybody's favorite topic, Isaac Howard. We'll look back at the situation and where he is now that cost him his tenure in Tampa Bay. Before we dive in, I want to mention today's special episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. All right, Greg, let's look back at the top stories of 2025, shall we? And I think maybe the biggest story of the year, at least in my mind, is that the Florida Panthers beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round of the playoffs, a third consecutive first round loss for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Greg, I think if anything, when I look back at that first round against the Panthers, to me, the biggest headline in my mind was, I think this is officially. And I preface this by saying I know the Florida Panthers won the Cup before this.
Yeah.
And they got to the Stanley Cup Finals in another year before this. But I think this was the first time that I looked at these two teams and said definitively the Panthers are an entire step ahead of the Lightning right now.
Yep. Completely agree with you. And it was noticeable, right? It wasn't even really close, if we're being honest. I think the Lightning had one very strong game against them, and I think that score was, 4 or 5-1? Mm-hmm. But outside of that one game, it was domination, let's be honest. And I think a big element of that was how well the Cats were able to silence Kucherov.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing is Nikita Kucherov hasn't scored in 16 straight playoff games now, I believe it's been.
Yeah, something like that. And it's funny because I don't even think he played particularly poorly by any means.
No.
I just think it was more that the Cats were ready for it, and they did their homework, man. I mean, on the power plays, they just take him right out of it. And as soon as you take Kuch off the power play and you kind of lock him down and you play really tight on him, he's not doing anything to you. And if he's not doing anything to you, the power play is definitely not doing anything to you. Right. And it worked. It really did. I mean, you got to give him a lot of credit for it.
To me, it was just the Lightning looked gassed.
Yeah.
I think it was, maybe this is a little bit of the hot button phrase, but to me, it was the first time I've ever seen the Lightning look old.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it was, which is weird because their core players are old, but they had a lot of young guys step up. I think to me, if I'm looking forward, I think this was maybe a catalyst of JBB and John Cooper sitting down the offseason. It's like, look, we need some more energy here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, that was, obviously the Jake Gensel thing happened the year before, but I almost think like you look at that and say, you need more moves like that. Like you might need to sacrifice sort of maybe a more long-lasting name if you have a chance to get some younger players. But I think it was just a sign of where the Lightning were and what they still need to do. And I look at it this year, and there is some new blood in spots.
Yeah.
I look back and God, I see like Dominic James and how well he's doing this year.
Yeah.
And looking, it's like how I'm not saying it would have caused the Lightning to win, but like how much more would the energy of a Dominic James impact some of these games as opposed to, no disrespect, like a Luke Glendening? Or, you talk about Darren Radish in his current form, how much does that change the dynamic of the blue line?
Right.
A little bit. If you had Dastu, does that change anything a little bit? It's or even, you go out and you get Pontus Holmberg in the off season and is just kind of a different dynamic in that bottom six for the Lightning. And look, the Florida Panthers big guns played really well in that playoff series.
Oh yeah.
The depth, I think, was where the Panthers really sort of hit the floor because their depth was a lot better than ours in this series. Yeah. And I think when I look back in the start of this current season, that's where I see some changes being made that maybe are a direct reflection of how the Lightning felt that they played against the Panthers in this playoff series.
Yeah, I agree. And there are two more things that I want to mention about this. And one is probably a pretty hot take, and the other one I think is quite obvious. I'll start with the obvious.
Okay.
The Cats are just a more physical team. And in recent years, the Lightning have become a much softer team. And, you lose guys like Maroon and Perry and, those guys who are instigators and willing to just be a pain in the butt. It affects your team a lot. I think it's important to have guys like that. And their roster last season really didn't have anyone like that, I'm going to argue. Mm-hmm. And they got bullied. They really did. They were out physical, played. They got beat up. And it was really, like you said, I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the age thing that you were saying. Like you kind of see the age. I think it's also like you see the physicality of the Cats, and it was not equal. It was not. Yeah. And the Lightning tried to kind of put that into their game a little bit against the Cats, but it's just not the same. I think it just comes very naturally for the Florida Panthers. Yeah. And last season for the Lightning, that was certainly not the case. And I think that was a big factor in that.
Yeah. That's right. You have a hot take. Let's hear the hot take.
Let me give you my hot take. My hot take is I love Yanni Gourde. He's one of my favorite players of all time. He's the first Lightning jersey I've owned. I think the decision to go after forwards at the deadline was a mistake. I think they really needed to find a defenseman, like a guy like Rasmus Andersson, for example. I think I mentioned this on one of our first shows together ever. But they just didn't pursue a defenseman. And I think last season, that was the hole for me. It was like, we need a much better defenseman, and we don't have one. And I think to just go up and try and fill in like a third and put really 2 third line slots instead, to me was just like not the answer. And again, Yanni has outperformed what I would have ever expected him to do thus far, to be honest with you, because he's an older guy now. And Bjorkstrand he's been solid, but again, at the same time, I think last season you were looking for a defenseman and you didn't get one. And I think that was a big problem.
Yeah. And it's interesting because now you look at where the Lightning are this year, and every defenseman is hurt. So maybe you revisit that. I don't know. Like, for full disclosure, the Yanni Gourde trade is going to be revisited in part 2 of our biggest stories of the year, so we'll dive in more. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to look at that blue line and say, like, was there something different that but I will say, like, I do love Yanni Gordon, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and where they are with the team now, or at least the potential of them.
Yeah,
let me say that. And I want to go back to the first thing you said, Greg, because you said that it was clear that the Bolts could not match the Panthers' physicality in this series. That led to one of the more interesting NHL storylines of the year so far, and it happened before the regular season even began. We're talking about the Panthers Lightning preseason brouhaha that drew a lot of ire from fans around the NHL. Let's revisit that when we come back. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup, one of my favorite sporting events ever, coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for their first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets kind of sounds like a pipe dream, right? That's why the Game Time app is clutch, people. It finally gives fans like you and I a real advantage when it comes to snagging great seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of just a pipe dream. All you have to do is pull out the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. All you have to do is pick a game, tap a section, and Game Time Zone deals will lock in your tickets for a great price within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The seat view is a game changer. You literally can see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat before you buy it, so you know what you're getting into. And one of my favorite things, all the prices include fees up front. What you see is what you get. You're not going to get surprised with any $100 maintenance charges when you go to hit checkout. The price you see is the price you pay. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and tickets for pretty much every match, concert, comedy show, whatever you want with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off with Game Time. We're back on Locked on Lightning. Nick Morgan alongside Greg Steven. And Greg, we were talking about the first round playoff series. That playoff series included a bit of a wild situation, I would say. Brandon Hagel suspended for a hit on Sasha Barkov.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Hagel gets back into the lineup. He gets hit in the head with what I would say was a pretty clear targeted hit from Aaron Ekblad on the Florida Panthers. That causes Brandon Hagel to miss time for the rest of the playoffs. So flash forward, there's already some bad blood there. The two teams don't like each other. I mean, hell, we even talked when we were doing our prospects tournament coverage. We had a brawl in the prospects tournament between the Panthers and Lightning. They're saying this hatred earlier. We go and Brandon Hagel is, let's just say, I'm calling it like it is, sucker punched.
Yeah. By
AJ Greer. No discipline. Actually, I think AJ Greer was fined. He was fined, but not suspended. Whatever. It was clearly a dirty hit, a sucker punch, and I know people are saying, well, that's just hockey. No, it's not. Like, Hagel didn't engage. Hagel didn't shove back. If they're shoving each other, fine. But that wasn't the case. AJ Greer took liberties with Brandon Hagel and just sucker punched him. That leads to the next game, Greg, where all hell breaks loose. And when all's said and done, we had, I think, 15 ejections in this game.
Yeah.
We had some more liberties taken. Just a mess. Greg, let's look back at this Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning preseason situation. Just give me the big picture. What's your takeaway when you look back on that situation?
I think it's fascinating because I don't know that we've really ever seen anything, at least in recent history, like that, where a team,
preseason.
well, certainly not in preseason, but I think in general, seeing a team just like dump out a bunch of guys to, I don't want to say intentionally injure anyone, but to beat up some guys, very fascinating. And I'm going to be real with you. This is the beginning of my love for Scott Sabrin.
Yeah. Well, they called hero.
Yeah. And look, it's not hockey. You don't really want to see that in the game. I'd rather them, fight it out during an actual hockey game. That was not a hockey game. And what was that? 7-0 Panthers?
7-0 Panthers. Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, it's preseason. They didn't care about winning that game, obviously, because it was more about sending a message. And I get that as well, because that's how hockey works. But at the same time, wow. I mean, I think what we haven't said yet about this storyline is that then they go into regular season and the first game is fairly normal, a little physical, but fairly normal. And then the second game, Hagel gets hit again.
Yeah.
And again, it's my arm is up in the air and it's going to hit you in the face, elbow, forearm. And, it's funny, in the Kings game recently, the commentators even mentioned, like, it's funny how many times Brandon Hagel gets hurt against the Cats. And
it's not just the NHL saying that. Like, you look around and every sports writer, every fan on Reddit, every Twitter post, like, guys coming in from the Toronto Maple Leafs fandom are like, what are the Panthers doing?
Right.
Or like the Calgary Flames, like, teams that should not have a dog in this fight are starting to notice the discourse between disparity between what the Panthers are doing and the level of punishment compared to other teams in the same situation.
Right. And for me, it's a big concern because, look, how many times is Hagel going to take a headshot before it becomes a serious issue for his career?
Yeah.
He's a young guy.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different, I think, angles that you can take to the story. Like, let's talk about it itself. Like, let's talk about the game itself.
Yeah.
Scott Sabrin goes out there, clearly is going out there to beat the crap out of Aaron Ekblad.
Oh, 100%.
And I think everybody, it's not only, I guess, retribution for the hit on Hagel in the playoffs, but I think it's also a message after Hagel gets hit again by AJ Greer.
Right.
The Lightning pulled pretty much everybody of significance from their lineup. They called out a bunch of AHL guys. Scott Sabrin leads the charge. They're clearly just trying to start crap.
Oh yeah.
Look, I'm not, I said this at the time, I'm not condoning what John Cooper did and how he approached that game, but I understand it.
Yes.
And you know what? I think Bob McKenzie, might have been Pierre LeBrun. They get mixed up to me all the time. But somebody on TSN said, because the Lightning got fined a huge chunk of change, and so did John Cooper after this, which we're going to get to, like, the fallout from that in a second. They said that John Cooper and the Lightning see this as an investment. And the message was, look, it's a number one message to the NHL. Like, look, we've been talking about this. We've expressed frustration with how this is going. If you're not going to do anything about it, we're taking it into our own hands.
Right.
Number two, I think that was kind of to piggyback on what we talked about the last segment. That was the Lightning saying, you're not going to push us around anymore.
Right.
Like, we're not going to be the team, the finesse team that, a guy gets clobbered from behind and you turn around to the ref and go, hey, like, we're the team that you knock down our captain or you knock down one of our key players or whoever, we're jumping right back up and we're giving it back to you tenfold. And I don't blame John Cooper for saying that, because I think it has added a new element to the Tampa Bay Lightning this year. The day after all this went down, they went out and claimed Curtis Douglas, a 6'9" guy known for his fighting, off waivers.
Yeah.
And, that to me, that was the biggest thing that came from this whole thing. I think this was a message from the Lightning that you're not going to push us around. And you know what? We saw this in the last Panthers game was, Nico Mikkola hits Jake Gensel high in the back of the head from behind, pushes him down to the ice. Jake Gensel, who's never gotten into a fight in his life, jumps up, starts throwing punches with a guy 7 inches taller than him. And I think that's the sign right there is this isn't the same Lightning team anymore. And I think you look back and this game, that was, I think, the beginning of a statement from the Lightning.
Completely agreed. And, it's good in a weird way, kind of like what you were alluding to. Now it's like you pick up Curtis Douglas and you add a little grit to the team if in case something's going down. I think you even have Scott Sabrin still in that role. And, I thought he actually has been playing good hockey recently as well for the Lightning.
Absolutely.
So it's like, if he can do both those things, keep him up. And, when you play the Cats, you got to keep some of these guys around. I think at this point, I almost sit Hagel against the Cats, but that's a big hot topic debate.
Yeah. And for full disclosure for you guys, we're recording this because we both have holiday travel. We're recording this before the game of December 27th. So if there was a massive brawl, here's the preface to what caused that massive brawl.
Yep.
Or if nothing happened, whatever. But yeah, Greg, I mean, I do think I look back on that situation and I think it's just, there's so much frustration with the NHL. And I think this situation really everybody kind of also always had like, oh, the Panthers get away with so much.
Right.
That narrative was going around, but let's be honest, they're back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. I think a lot of people are going to put their game under a microscope. Yeah. This to me was the first time that I think everybody in the NHL, not in the area of Sunrise, Florida, looked at this game or looked at the Panthers and said, what's going on? Because what happened? AJ Greer got fined for it's Sucker Punch. Scott Sabrin got suspended for 4 games.
Yep.
The
$100,000 fine.
The Lightning got a massive fine. John Cooper got a massive fine. And then remember, there were also some ejections in the context of the game. Zemgus Girgensons gets boarded by Carter Verhaeghe.
Right.
Zemgus Girgensons misses, I want to say the first month of the season.
Yep.
And Carter Verhaeghe does not get any supplemental discipline from that. Meanwhile, JJ Moser hits. Was it Carter Verhaeghe or was it somebody else? I can't remember who JJ Moser hit. That person did not miss any time. JJ Moser got suspended 2 games for that hit.
Yeah.
It was the same play. And I think that's the thing is that's what's frustrating. It's not like, oh, the Panthers get away with so much. They do. But it's also the fact that you take it other teams, other players in the same situation. There was 2 identical situations in this game, and they were punished different. I think that's where people look at the Panthers and say, there's something wrong with the way NHL player safety is approaching this.
Yeah, it's a significant lack of consistency across the board. And I think that's what people beg for from Department of Player Safety is just be consistent. If you're going to allow something, then allow it.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to allow something, then don't allow it, and it hasn't been consistent. And like you said, to have the same type of situation and hit in the same exact game and have a different result for different players, I feel like there is really no excuse for that.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's an ongoing story. And look, we've already seen a couple of things from the Panthers this year that aren't getting called, aren't getting punished. The Seth Jones hit was one. I want to say the next game, I don't remember what player it was, but you saw somebody go behind Adrian Kempe, 2-hand him in the back of the neck while he's on the ice and then shove his head into the ice. Kempe played, unfortunately, because then he scored 2 goals against us the next night. But I think it's one of those things that's like, if that is Scott Sabrin, does that get suspended? Does that get called? Does that get fined?
Right.
It's little plays like that I think are just some of the inconsistency is really driving me up a wall.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. It does it for me too. But you know what? The positive in this is that if these 2 teams meet in the playoffs, it's going to be fun.
So, yeah. I go back to the for some reason the Parks and Rec quote.
Yeah.
In my head, someone will die of fun and murder. Oh, God.
True.
Hey, speaking of situations that make our blood boil, let's talk about Isaac Howard. The trade rumors and requests and demands and fallout from that was certainly one of the most talked about stories from Lightning's fans this past year. Let's look on it back now, and do we have a little bit of a different lens on it moving forward? We'll talk about that when Locked on Lightning returns. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly the entire game feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. Maybe a receiver gets hot. Maybe a defense tightens up. Or there's a big turnover and momentum flips on its head. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment live with live bets as the game unfolds. The live spreads and money lines adjust instantly whenever there's a big play. Player props update as guys heat up. So if Baker Mayfield's tearing it up through the air, you can bet more on his passing numbers. You can also bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and much, much more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. You can also pull out your phone and download the FanDuel app straight to your phone, either on Apple or Android. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. We're back on Locked on Lightning. Nick Morgan here alongside Greg Steven, and we are looking back at the top stories for the Tampa Bay Lightning of 2025. Greg, one that I think a lot of fans are still talking about to this day, maybe in a little bit of a shady sense, every time you see his name pop up in the AHL transaction page, is the Isaac Howard situation. Let's dive into this a little bit. So Isaac Howard, I would say the consensus top prospect in the Tampa Bay Lightning system.
Yep.
At the start of last season, or maybe starting halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Was already a pretty good prospect, and then has the season of his life at Michigan State.
Yep.
52 points, 37 games played. He wins the Hobie Baker Award. As this is going on, we start to hear whispers. We start to hear rumors that maybe Isaac Howard doesn't necessarily want to play in Tampa Bay. Now, there's a lot of different, I guess, theories or some reports out there. One report is that, and I'm going to preface this by saying we don't exactly know what's true, but we've heard various rumblings of maybe Isaac Howard wanted some guaranteed NHL time right away. We also heard that maybe he wanted to play in more of a scoring role and not a support role, that the Lightning couldn't guarantee that to him. We've also heard reports that maybe he just looked at sort of the Lightning's depth and didn't like thought he might have better future prospects elsewhere. Whatever the reason, we've also heard just flat out that he didn't get along with some of the Lightning staff. You know, what we don't know what's true and what's not, but whatever reason, it comes out that Isaac Howard, top prospect in the system, requests a trade from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Around the summer, they grant that to him. Isaac Howard is traded to the Edmonton Oilers for Sam O'Reilly, one of the Oilers' other first-round picks. And there we go. And now Isaac Howard is I believe he is in the AHL right now, which is where he reportedly didn't want to be. Sam O'Reilly is tearing it up in juniors still.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, what do you make of this situation in retrospect?
Yeah, see you later, man. I mean, look, if I'm him, I just want to play on an NHL team, like, first and foremost. Second, like, I don't know. Let's just say, for argument's sake, any of those first three things you listed are true. why do you think that you get to select all these things right now? You haven't even played in the NHL yet at all.
Mm-hmm.
And look, then, like you said, they sent him up to Edmonton, and I think he played a handful of games at the NHL level for the Oilers already. And I think he recorded one goal.
He's played 17 games, 2 goals, 1 assist.
2 goals and an assist in 17. So the Lightning have to be sitting here thinking, wow, thank God we didn't give him a big role, because 3 points in 17 games ain't super impressive. Look, he's got a long career ahead of him. I'm sure he'll turn into something, but I think his ego maybe seems like it's at the Connor McDavid level, and he's not. And it's really that simple for me. And I don't want a guy on the team who's got that kind of mindset. I'd rather them have the grinder, team player, emotional mindset like Hagel and Cooch and those guys who constantly work hard with each other and for each other and want to improve themselves constantly. Those guys aren't worried about these things. And I think, good luck to Isaac Howard, but ultimately I think the Bolts made the right move. I think they also probably recognize, wow, this kid, he's a little too much for us. Let's get him out of here. And I think that's the right play.
He had a personality for sure. Right. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with personality, Greg.
Not at all. Not at all.
No. And I think the key is, it's not just an Isaac Howard situation. We've seen this a few times. We just saw Rutger McGroarty, kind of muscle his way out of Winnipeg. Yeah. We of course had the infamous Cutter Gauthier situation last year in Philadelphia. Yeah. This seems to be becoming a norm, and I don't want to be like the old man at the table that's ranting about the way things were, but it is there's a little bit more, I'm going to say, impatience.
Yeah.
From just young athletes. And I do think it's good that young athletes have a say in their future, where they go. It's their life. They deserve to live it how they want. They deserve to work where they want, regardless of age. But look, you look at college football and college basketball and the whole NIL situation that's just blowing up, and I think people are taking advantage of it. Look at some of these more recent trades, and I do think there's almost this sense of, what are you going to do for me right now when you haven't proved anything? Exactly. And that's kind of how I felt about Isaac Howard. And it's like, dude, we'll put you on the second line or first line opposite Nikita Kucherov when you prove you can play with Nikita Kucherov.
Right.
Like you had a Hobey Baker winner, but Ryan Jones won a Hobey Baker. Blake Jeffrian won a Hobey Baker.
Right.
Do you know where those guys are now? Have you heard of those guys before?
Exactly.
You haven't done anything in the NHL yet. And I think if that's sort of the thing, it's like, well, I want to play this role right away. And I don't know if that's the case. Like we haven't really heard anything in depth from anybody, but I do think there's a little bit of impatience from young athletes now when they see all this. And it's like, we're taking things in our own hands, and they're not giving teams that invested in them a chance. And, credit, you should give the Lightning some credit for making you a first-round pick, right?
Exactly. And it's also like, don't you you see this team has just won cups recently. They still have a winning caliber team, still in the running to win a cup if they have a healthy roster. Why wouldn't you want to enter the NHL as a part of a team like that? And I think
exactly.
And it's like, the Lightning have nothing to prove to you. If anything, you have to prove it to them, like you just said, and eat the fourth line minutes for a few games. Get a point or two. They'll move you up. They just want to see you put in some effort and prove that you can play at the NHL level. It's really that simple. Yeah. No one's going to just give you a Cooch first line minutes off the rip. It's just not how it works.
Yeah. And who cares if you go to the AHL for a little bit either?
Right.
Go tear it up in Syracuse.
Yeah.
You can
dominate
you're
Syracuse.
tearing up in Bakersfield now.
Right. Yeah, you can dominate Syracuse and get some top minutes.
I will ask, do you think the Lightning handled the situation as best they could? They get Sam O'Reilly, who is, I will say, a different player than Isaac Howard. A little bit more, less, explosive scoring, maybe a little bit more of a two-way guy. Are you happy with what the Lightning got back? And do you think Julien Brisebois and the, I guess, development staff handled it as best they could?
I think they did. And to be honest with you, I don't think JBB, this doesn't bother him too much. I bet you he sleeps just fine after making this move. And yeah, as far as the return, look, again, Isaac Howard didn't prove anything to me. So
yeah,
it's just like losing another guy that I haven't seen before to me. Yeah. And I got another guy back who I've never seen before. So
yeah, and you know what? You said you love grit, and you said you love guys that work hard. Sam O'Reilly fits that mold.
Exactly.
Obviously, he's a guy who had some big moments in London the past couple of years. He won the Memorial Cup. He's got back-to-back OHL championships. So, yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I think fans are going to really, really love. Like I said, he's maybe not the explosive high-end offensive guy that Isaac Howard was, or at least the ceiling. But if anything, I think he's a guy that I know like a lot of people compare him a little bit to, Anthony Cirelli, just because of, the defensive soundness and ability to play like the whole 200 feet. To me, I watched this game and, I'm just going to do an O'Reilly comparison. I think there is a little bit of Ryan O'Reilly to his game.
Nice.
Same thing, maybe not high-end explosive talent, but can score. I think his ceiling is he's going to be a guy that you can really plug into the fourth line and play some reliable minutes, a guy like Zemgus Girgensons. High end is he's, finds his stride as a really good, I think, second line center.
Yeah.
Or second line winger. So
I can see that as well, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm happy with it. And I agree with you. I don't think there's much that, I don't think there's much that anybody on Tampa's side could have done to fix that.
Yeah. What else are you going to do? So,
yeah. Other top stories of the year, obviously for the Tampa Bay Lightning, injuries have been a key component to how they're playing this year. We'll recap that. Plus, as Greg mentioned earlier, the Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand trade at the deadline was controversial at the time. Now that we've had almost a full calendar year to sort of judge that deal, do we think any differently now? And Nikita Kucherov, 2 straight Art Ross wins. But is there some bias regarding him in the Hart Trophy conversation, or maybe where he ranks on the list of best NHL players right now? These are stories that we're going to tackle tomorrow in part 2 of our top stories of 2025. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Back tomorrow with a new episode. We'll see you then.